times our size. So if you had on one day about 8,000 Brits murdered, mutilated, raped, and kidnapped, and they came right next to London, what would you do? We know what you did. We know exactly what Britain did, and I don't hold Churchill or the British government or the British people who supported him responsible for saying you shouldn't have acted that way. You bombed the living daylights out of German cities and out of French cities.
What is up, everybody? Lucas here. I know this is an older interview, but I had to bring it back because watching it now hits completely different. This is Benjamin Netanyahu, one of the most media-trained political figures alive, sitting across from a journalist who looked him dead in the eye and said, "You are losing the battle of public opinion." And here's why this old clip is suddenly everything. This is the same man who, by Marco Rubio's own admission, pushed America into a war with Iran. The same man Lindsey Graham flew to Israel to coach on how to handle Trump. Obama said no, Biden said no, Trump said yes, and now we've got a closed Strait of Hormuz, spiking gas prices, and American troops in harm's way because of a 40-year obsession. This isn't old news. This is the prologue to everything happening right now. Full breakdown at the end. So stick around and hit subscribe before we get into it. Let's go.
A huge battle today between the forces of civilization, the forces of modernity, and the very fanatic forces who want to take us back to the early Middle Ages, and do so with a violence that is unimaginable. You've seen these pictures of people cutting open the chest of an enemy, these Islamists, tearing out the heart. The person is still alive and eating the heart. That tells you something. Now, that mentality, that fanaticism has to be confronted. It will move and invade your countries, and it will destroy them. Israel is not just fighting our battle. It's fighting the battle against radical Islam that threatens the future of the world. And I think many people thought communism would threaten the world, or China would threaten the world. I'm saying that this untethered force of an extremist ideology that knows no limits, if it has nuclear weapons, the ballistic missiles to deliver them, and the masses that will destroy democracies, burn Christians.
Prime Minister,
we're committed to defending Christians around the world and in the Middle East. If they win the day, we all lose. Israel is defending itself, but in so doing, we're defending Western civilization.
Prime Minister, that is one way of viewing the world, and I have some sympathy with some of what you've said. Let me give you another way, which is that many people around the world see the state of Israel as a country that is exclusively using military force, that has killed 70,000 people in Gaza, that is doing nothing to create a sustainable future for people there. That is a country, you've been accused of being a war criminal. If you went to go to several countries in Europe, you're going to get arrested. This is not just mad campus radicalism. This is a feeling around the world. You said it yourself to us just now. In public opinion around the world, Israel is doing very poorly. And it's doing very poorly because people see a country that is behaving in a way that is not compatible with being a liberal democracy. And therefore, I think you have a problem. I think that loss of public opinion, what struck me from your autobiography was how subtly and for how long you have understood this. You know that political power comes from public opinion, and you know that you need to win the battle of public opinion, and you're losing it. You've absolutely lost it in Europe, but much more worryingly for you, you're losing it in America. And I think that what you've just told me about fanaticism is true in part, but it is not going to shape public opinion. People are going to roll their eyes and say, he's saying that anybody who says anything critical about Israel is anti-Semitic. He's giving this large, this story about fanaticism, and he's not accepting the fact that Israel is behaving in a way that we think is incompatible with the kind of liberal democracy that he claims.
Well, the liberal democracies that fought the battles from World War II to Afghanistan to Iraq and so on, the ratio of combatants to non-combatants killed was 6-1, 7-1. In Gaza, because Hamas was forcing people to stay in urban areas at gunpoint, the ratio is about 1.5 to 1. And we lost a lot of soldiers because we didn't carpet bomb. We
That is
didn't do it.
disputed, Prime Minister.
We didn't do.
People have different ratios as well,
I'm
including
telling
Nadia.
you, you don't actually, but that's not the point. It certainly wasn't 6-1 or 7-1, and we certainly didn't carpet bomb, which we could have done right away. We've lost a lot of people by my refusal and the IDF's own mores in making sure that doesn't happen. Now, if you have the densest urban warfare theater in history, with 500 kilometers of terror tunnels underneath, 50 meters below, 50 meters above, everything booby-trapped, and you don't come in and just bomb the place to smithereens, which we didn't. I mean, we had everything booby-trapped. We moved the population out, and then you have to fight the Hamas in there. The ratios in Mosul, the ratios in Fallujah, the ratios elsewhere, there's nothing comparison, and that was nothing compared to what our brave soldiers had to face in Gaza. So I dispute the fact. The argument that you put forward is being put forward. It doesn't make it true. What is true is that Israel is fighting these worst killers, these people who took not only beheaded our men, raped our women, and then murdered them, burned our babies alive, and took 255 hostages, which we took out. Nobody believed that we got them out. These are barbarians, and they're given a free look. I have demonstrations on behalf of Hamas. Notice that they're burning the flag of Israel and the flag of the UK, the flag of Israel and the flag of America. When you have pro-Israel demonstrations, they wave Israeli flags, they wave American flags, they wave British flags. These people are against you, whether you recognize it or not. They will sweep away your societies, your freedoms, your ideas, the values that we cherish, exactly
Prime
as you
Minister,
do.
it really isn't just extreme radicals. There are
I didn't say that,
huge
did I?
numbers of people who are concerned about Israel's behavior, frankly, including people like me.
Well, you
Friends
know,
of Israel who
I
are
think that if
concerned-
Britain was invaded, forgive me, if Britain was invaded and you had the equivalent, in Britain, your population is what, 65 million, something like that, 60 million, right? So you're about 6 times our size. So if you had, on one day, about 8,000 Brits murdered, mutilated, raped, and kidnapped, and they came right next to London, what would you do? We know what you did. We know exactly what Britain did, and I don't hold Churchill or the British government or the British people who supported him responsible for saying you shouldn't have acted that way. You bombed the living daylights out of German cities and out of French cities that were in your way and so on. We didn't do that. We went in with ground forces. We didn't carpet bomb our way in there because otherwise nothing would be there in Gaza.
Let's talk about what this interview actually was, because watching it now with everything we know, it plays less like a tense exchange and more like a warning nobody in power chose to hear. Start with the public opinion argument, because the journalist nailed Netanyahu with surgical precision and he had no real answer. He told him directly, political power flows from public opinion and you're losing it. Not just in Europe, not just the global south. In America, the country that has bankrolled Israel for decades, given it diplomatic cover, vetoed UN resolutions on its behalf, that support is cratering. Polling now shows a majority of Americans think we're too entangled in conflicts driven by Netanyahu's interests, not ours. And get this, even inside MAGA, the most reliably pro-Israel coalition in modern politics, you've got Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, and others publicly saying this isn't what they signed up for. He was losing the room then. He's losing it worse now. Then there's the ratio argument, which Netanyahu has repeated in basically every interview since, and it falls apart under any real scrutiny. He claims Israel's combatant to civilian ratio compares favorably to Mosul or Fallujah. But a ratio doesn't explain 17,000 dead children. It doesn't explain documented sniper shots to the head reported by American doctors who were there. It doesn't explain a school full of girls hit by American ordnance during the Iran war, that the administration initially tried pinning on Iran before the evidence made that impossible. You can recite statistics all day. The footage tells a different story, and that gap is exactly why public opinion moved the way it did. And then the Churchill comparison, Netanyahu's favorite move. If Britain lost thousands in a day, what would you do? Sounds compelling until you remember the Allied bombing campaigns aren't celebrated as moral triumphs. They're some of the most debated military decisions in history. The entire post-war legal order, the Geneva Conventions, the ICC, exists because of what happened in those campaigns. Reaching for that as a defense isn't a moral argument. It's an admission the conduct needs historical cover to justify, which brings us to the ICC warrant, the part Netanyahu wants everyone to wave off as politics. Since this interview, the ICC issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu and his former defense minister for war crimes, including using starvation as a method of warfare and intentionally targeting civilians. A 94-year-old Holocaust survivor who prosecuted war crimes for decades reviewed the evidence and said the indictment was legally sound. That's not anti-Semitism. That's the system built after the Holocaust doing exactly what it was designed to do, and the US has spent serious political capital shielding one man from it. Here's the through line that makes this old clip matter today. Netanyahu spent 40 years trying to drag America into a war with Iran. Every president before Trump said no, as his image collapsed under the weight of Gaza. The ICC warrant and the mounting death toll, he needed a reset, something to flip the narrative and make his critics look like they were standing with the enemy. The Iran war was that reset. It was the play he'd been waiting 4 decades to run. And for a moment it worked. But now the strait's closed, gas prices are climbing, American soldiers are exposed, and there's no exit plan in sight. The public opinion battle he was already losing in this clip hasn't improved, it's gotten worse. Because the world is watching Iran with the same eyes it learned to use watching Gaza. This is exactly why this channel exists. Powerful people count on the public forgetting, on the gap between an old clip and today being wide enough that nobody connects the dots. We don't let that happen here. If this gave you something nobody else is laying out for you, like the video, send it to someone who thinks this war came out of nowhere. Subscribe to Lucas Rant. We've got a lot more to dig into. And we're just getting started.